Please welcome the President of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, Oklahoma City Mayor David Holt.
All right, good morning. We got a pretty exciting plenary, guys, so I'm glad you're here. Tell your friends to get on down here. Welcome to the Mayors and Business Leaders Plenary Session. Thank you to the over 120 members of the Business Council for the support you provide the conference and our cities. The conference looks forward to continuing our commitment to work with America's mayors and the business community to promote the public-private partnerships that strengthen the economy in cities and in America. This year marks the 11th year the conference is releasing the USCM report, Mayors and Businesses Driving Economic Growth, which showcases innovative, successful, and replicable public-private partnerships with America's mayors and USCM Business Council members in cities across the country. In March, Business Council members will be invited to submit their best practices for the 2026 report. I want to welcome our new Business Council members listed on the screen and ask you to stand and be recognized. So if you see your company on the screen, please stand. Yes, yeah. No, that's good. Thank you and welcome to the U.S. Conference of Mayors. I also want to thank the 22 companies that have supported the Mayors Business Council for more than 15 years. Okay, the folks on this screen, please stand and be recognized. Yes, I see you. These people, if you're a mayor, these people are have become a part of your family. I know all these folks. This is great. Thank you. Let's thank our platinum partners for their support of the U.S. Conference of Mayors and ask them to stand and be recognized as well. Platinum partners. Okay, so just these five. Yes, thank you. And thank you to the Business Council Steering Committee and co-chairs for their continued leadership. And that's the folks you see on the screen there. We are so grateful. Now, I would like to invite Siemens USA Senior Vice President and Head of Government Affairs to the podium for a few remarks. Please give a warm welcome to Bree Saxe.
Good morning. It's a privilege to join you all today as co-chair of the Mayors Business Council. Now, the Business Council is a forum, as you know, where city leaders and industry experts join forces to innovate for action. And at Siemens, we're proud to do just that for over 100 U.S. cities, from Cleveland to Fort Worth to Seattle. Our technologies are helping city leaders drive the future of American cities. Think smarter buildings, grids, rail and transit networks of the future. And our commitment at Siemens runs deep. 50,000 U.S. employees, 15,000 suppliers, and we've invested $20 billion in the U.S. in recent years. Now, as you know, America's mayors serve as the chief executives of cities. And former New York City Mayor Fiorella LaGuardia famously once said that there is no Democratic or Republican way of cleaning the streets. Now, if you think about the Business Council, it really enforces that critical work. Industry and government working together to tackle challenges. I'm very excited to be here today on behalf of the Business Council. I have my co-chair, Deborah Henson, in the crowd, and immediate past co-chair, Quentin Lacewell. Thank you so much for the support and enjoy the conference.
Please welcome Arlington Mayor Jim Ross, Memphis Mayor Paul Young, and VIA CEO Daniel Ramat.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Is there a reason why they have me moderating a panel first thing in the morning? I think this is the conference's way of saying, Jim, get out here and wake everybody up. So that's exactly what, yes, that's exactly what we intend on doing. Listen, I'm here with a couple of great guys who know a whole lot more about what we're going to be talking about than I, but transportation is a crazy issue with all of us mayors nowadays. We're always hearing, I don't care if you do a town hall, I don't care if you're doing a state of the city, I don't care what you're doing. Every time we get out for people, in front of people, one of the questions that we hear about all the time is, what are you doing about transportation? And no matter how much you do, you never do enough. And no matter what you do, you've done the wrong thing. Am I right? Well, this evolving world that we live in necessitates us talking to people who are being innovative with what's going on with transportation. With me today are two good friends. This guy right here is my go-to person on transportation, Daniel Ramat, who's the CEO of VIA. People in Arlington say, well, Arlington's the largest city in the country without public transportation, where we sure as hell have public transportation. We've just done it differently for a number of years, thanks to VIA. And then Mayor Young with Memphis, they got some really cool, innovative stuff going on. So let's kick it off with you, Daniel. Tell us what's happening in your world of transportation and what's been so evolving here.
Thanks so much, Mayor Ross, and pleasure to be here. VIA is a company that's focused on providing software and operations to cities and transit agencies all over the world. We have over 700 partners in 35 countries. But I think the key point that I wanted to make is that there's been so much evolution and so much progress in transit, and especially in transit technology, that today we have the ability to completely rethink the way we run our transit system and run the entire system on a single software platform: buses, paratransit, microtransit, new ways of running it, planning, operations, everything end to end. And that gives us the ability to do some really interesting and cool new things. I'll give a couple of examples of what we've done with Mayor Ross here in Arlington. Arlington had one bus route several years ago, about 7 or 8 years ago. We've been working together. We replaced that bus route with a microtransit system, initially for the same budget, and then over years have grown it. We didn't need to start too big. We started with a small pilot zone, and then from that grew to cover the entire city. You can see some of the numbers, just amazing progress in what's been possible. And then with Mayor Young in Memphis, we started out by launching microtransit in a really smart, innovative way in parts of the city that really needed additional transit. So microtransit, small vans that can be routed dynamically, point to point, and can be excellent ways to cover areas that have lower density where the buses don't really work. If you look at the map of Memphis and its bus routes, you'll still see that we've got the historical bus system sort of trying to cover as much territory as possible, which a lot of times with large buses doesn't really work. And we're working together to think about a longer-term vision in Memphis where we could transform the bus system. And this is just one idea that we're working together on with MATA, with the Memphis Area Transit Authority, to rethink the bus routes so we have fewer bus routes. They're running much more frequently. You can see only 12 bus routes, and then we can cover the entire city with microtransit. And if we can do that, that will allow people to travel anywhere within the city within under an hour, which today isn't possible. And I'll wrap up with just an example. We've already done this. One example is Sioux Falls, South Dakota. We worked with Mayor Paul Tenhaken, who's also been a transit innovator, to do exactly that, to redesign the entire transit system, replace the bus system with a much straighter, more frequent bus route, and then cover the entire city with microtransit, fully interconnected. And that, as you can see, has driven up over 2 years grown ridership by 40%, and reduced the cost per trip pretty significantly. So this is something we can really do with the new technology that's available. And I'll finish up with one last point. We are really on a mission at VIA to make the bus cool and make people want to ride the bus. And I know that sounds a little crazy. There's an Onion, if you guys know the Onion satirical publication, of course, they pretend to have done a survey. They have a headline that I love. They say 95% of Americans favor public transportation for others. I think this sort of gets at what our public transportation perception is across America. And we're on a mission to change that by changing the entire way that people experience public transit, and especially the bus. So I'll stop here.
That's incredible. Mayor Young, I know Memphis is unique from transit issues that we all deal with in our regional areas. What's going on with Memphis, and what are y'all doing there to sort of adjust accordingly to provide the needs for all?
Yeah, we've had an interesting journey when it comes to transportation in Memphis, and I've had the opportunity to work with VIA from 2 seats. I've been mayor for 2 years, but prior to this, I was actually the president of our downtown Central Business Improvement District, and that was where we piloted the program called Groove on Demand, where we started with the microtransit in our downtown area. And one of the things that was probably the most pleasing for me to find out was that when we started the program, I thought that it was going to be mostly office workers going to and from lunch spots and things of that nature, which you did have some of that. But we found that the most used ride was from one of our underserved areas, taking that transit from there to the grocery store that was in the center of the city. And so what we found was that this microtransit was not just something that was nice for people to use during the day and helping them get around, but it was also connecting people to the critical needs that they had. And so that told us that we were on to something. We expanded the program. MATA, that's our transit system. Madam actually started a program called READY, which was a microtransit program that was powered by VIA. It was run by our transit authority, but it was powered by VIA. And the reason it's important in Memphis, because like many cities, we had these legacy routes where we had 24 of them. We still have 24 of them. It's way too many of them. It's way too big. Memphis is about 300 square miles with a population of roughly 615,000 people. And for comparison's sake, Boston is 91 square miles with 670,000 people. So our city is way too big. And so in order to serve all of the areas, we needed an option for the areas that have lower density, where we don't have the ridership that we need. And microtransit is a great way for us to do it. So that slide that he showed where we were minimizing the routes is in order for us to be able to maximize the frequency on those routes, those most used routes, and get people through those routes by using microtransit. And I think it's just a creative way to make sure that all of the residents in our community have access to transit, and it becomes a choice to ride. Many of the people that use transit in Memphis right now are people that have to use it. And we want it to be where everybody uses it, because it's the best way to get around in our community.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that. I think our needs in transportation vary depending upon region to region to region. In North Texas, if you're not familiar with Arlington is a population of over 400,000 people. But we're a big city, but we're buried between 2 other bigger cities, Dallas and Fort Worth. But Arlington brings nearly 17 million people a year in tourism to watch America's team, Cowboys. And okay, we haven't won lately, but we're still America's team. They come to watch the Cowboys, to watch the Rangers, to do all the crazy fun things. But we're not a part of a transit authority. And Arlington never has been. See, there are 3 transit authorities in North Texas: Denton County, T-Metro, and DART in the Dallas area. And then you have a group of non-members like Arlington and Grand Prairie and other communities around there. And the problem isn't just getting around the city, it's getting around the region. And we're positioned to become the 3rd largest regional area in the United States within the next 10 to 15 years. And we still don't have the ability to regionalize. What I'm seeing is issues like economic development are impacting our ability to work together, because you have certain parts of the community saying, well, we don't want to necessarily regionalize this in a way that allows people to go spend money in your city. We want them to stay here. My philosophy is a little bit different, that if Dallas or Fort Worth does better, guess what? I do better as well. And I think we have to change our mentality on how we do that. For us, when the study was done to see if the fixed route busing would be appropriate, what we found, and this was by the people that were promoting the fixed route busing, was that we lacked that consistent density to warrant fixed route busing. So that's when we turned to entities like VIA to say, how can we fill that gap there? What other challenges are y'all seeing in the world of transportation regionally? Daniel, you're around everywhere on here. Economic development, ridership. You're right, we have to make transportation sexy again. Standing in a cold bus stop waiting for a grungy, dirty bus to come by isn't attractive to people anymore. What are some of the challenges you're seeing out there in communities?
Thanks, Mayor Ross. I think you hit on some of the key ones. The balance between the needs and the desires of local authorities, whether they're small, more dense, more rural, more affluent, and the regional needs. That's something we see quite a lot, this sort of tension between cities and regional authorities. I think it's less of an issue in Memphis because Memphis and MATA are sort of pretty overlapping and aligned, but it is an issue in many other places. And finding a way, I think, to sit down together and talk about what each community needs, what is the right solution for them, and how does we have the ability to design something that works for everybody. It just requires people to sit down and talk and figure out how to do that. Some communities want microtransit. Other communities, some communities really microtransit is the solution. Probably doesn't work to have a bus route at all. Other communities like Memphis, we absolutely need buses. Right. We may not need as many, but we absolutely need some buses, and we want them to be fully connected with the train system. Other systems, you might have in North Texas, we've got a town that is really in need of helping workers get to and from. That's their core challenge. We need to tailor a solution for them as well.
It's great you say that. You talk about working together. We're hosting 9 games of the World Cup in Arlington, and we don't have fixed route busing. And people are saying, well, how in the world are you getting people in and out? One of the things we've been able to do was work collaboratively with everybody in North Texas to make sure that we have all of the transportation with the ingress and egress getting people in and out of our entertainment district. Mayor Young, what about you? What are you seeing specifically in Memphis? Do y'all have the same type of issues that we're seeing in North Texas?
Oh yeah, most definitely. I mean, one of the things that I always tell when we get with our regional mayors is that we are competing as an economic unit. We're competing against MSAs across the country. We're not just competing against this municipality against this municipality within our region, because if we create jobs, all of our people can get to those jobs if we create a system the right way. And so when it comes to train, there's one example that's real time. Ford Blue Oval City is creating about 5,000 jobs with a new plant that they're building, which is about 30, 45 minutes right outside of Memphis. And so we've been working collaboratively with them to try to identify a path to get residents from Memphis to that location. And so microtransit is going to be a part of that solution, because what we want to have is a destination in Memphis, one gathering point where we take a shuttle that goes straight back and forth. But how do you get all of the people in the city of Memphis to that gathering point? We have to use microtransit as a means to get people there. But using that kind of creativity and working together is really important as regions think about the future of where our communities are going. And so I think that transportation is at the core of all of the things that we want to see happen in our community. We have to make sure that people can get to those assets that we're looking to build.
I had the pleasure of going to Japan last year on a meeting with the U.S.-Japan Council, and we're hosting the Texas-Japan Summit, Economic Summit, for the next 3 years in Arlington. And I was floored by the incredible transportation in Japan and how they're light years ahead of places like Texas when it comes to that. We're about out of time, but if y'all were to give any advice to mayors here, what would be the best advice you can give them regarding transportation? How should we be looking at transportation, not just tomorrow, but 10, 15, 20 years from now?
I think I would start by saying, as a mayor, you should ask for the data. Do you understand how people travel in your city? What are they doing? How the train system is used? How much it costs you as a mayor to move, or your transit is to move a passenger on any one of your bus routes? That's the way maybe you've been doing it for years, decades, but is there a better way to do it? And I think just asking those questions and getting the data and seeing what your system is really delivering to you for the taxpayer dollars that you're spending on it is key. And you'll discover, I think, some really interesting things, and then realize the opportunity that you probably have to make real improvements.
Mayor Young,
Yeah, I would echo everything that he just said, and I would just say maximize efficiency. In order to get our transit system strong, we have to make sure that it's easy for people to use it, that it's taking as little time as possible to get them from their origination point to their destination, and maximizing efficiency on our systems is going to be the most important thing that we can do.
Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate your time today. Y'all give it up for our great guests today. God bless y'all and take care of each other.
Thank you all. All right. Well, as we look toward America's 250th birthday in 2026, there is something uniquely meaningful about celebrating a sport that has shaped our national story. Baseball and softball remain America's pastimes because they bring people together, build confidence in young players, and create memories that last a lifetime. The Mayor's Play Ball program's purpose is to reach kids who don't normally play baseball or softball and strengthen the connection with those who are currently involved in the game. And I know I see all the pictures every year from all your social media accounts. It's wonderful how many of our mayors have embraced the Play Ball program. Our next speaker, known to many as Mr. National, spent his entire Major League Baseball career with one organization, the Washington Nationals, exemplifying loyalty, perseverance, and professionalism. Here to help us kick off Play Ball, 2019 World Series champion Ryan Zimmerman. Let's hear it. Thank you, Ryan.
Morning. Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here. Very proud to represent MLB and their Play Ball initiative. I grew up playing Little League Baseball, and first of all, I'm a big believer in sports in general. I think I'm a little biased to baseball for certain reasons, but we learn a lot of life lessons playing sports. In baseball, you learn how to fail. You learn how to get better at what you failed at and become successful. You learn how to maybe get along with teammates or coaches or people that you might not want to be around all the time that you have to be around. So I think sports in general and Little League teach great lessons. They also build community. They teach you and make it okay to be around everyone in your community. Everyone has the same opportunity to come out and succeed and get better at things. We could talk for a long time about the state of youth sports and travel baseball and all these crazy things going on compared to what I grew up playing, which is just pure Little League baseball. And I think all of you that have worked hard to help us keep that going and to make it better is important, not only for the sport of baseball, which we all care about, but I think for kids in these neighborhoods that might not have an opportunity to play travel baseball, or they might not be able to afford to go to a lot of the other tournaments. We always used to say that, you just have to have a chance. I think, a lot of these new organizations and these new thoughts that you have to go here to be able to play Major League Baseball. A lot of people ask me, what did you do to become a Major League Baseball player? I said, I don't think you do anything. I think, honestly, the kids that become professional at whatever sport they play, I think from the time they started and the time they began playing, they were the ones that were going to make it. Obviously, there's great coaching and there's stories about kids becoming better and better, but the point is they all started kind of where I started. Little League Baseball, the community outreach programs, the coaches that are fathers or mothers in the communities, or police officers or school teachers, and these make the children feel comfortable in their neighborhoods. And sports and baseball in particular, I think, build community fabric. They make you know people that live down your street. They make you carpool to go to places, and it's a beautiful thing when that happens. So, I appreciate you all being here. I appreciate all the work that many of you in this room have done for the Play Ball initiative. It's very important to MLB to keep this thing going. We've had great success in the last few years getting kids to maybe play baseball that never would have played baseball. So obviously I care about this a lot. It means a lot to me. It means a lot to the game of baseball. Thank you for having me this morning, and thank you for all that you do, and let's keep moving forward with it. I appreciate it. Have a great day.
Please welcome Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson and Conference President David Holt.
Well, you'll recall, if you were here yesterday, and if you weren't, you were surely watching on YouTube, you'll recall we're chatting with some of our colleagues a little bit through the course of this winter meeting. And as I said yesterday, you know, we've got some amazing visitors. We just had one world champion, but the real stars here are the mayors, and we want to learn a little bit more about our colleagues and the work they're doing. So we have, of course, here Mayor Johnson, somebody we, like all Americans, we kind of think we know a little bit. You know, when you're the mayor of Chicago, you're out there on the national and international stage quite a bit. But, you know, let's not presume everybody here has actually read your Wikipedia entry. So, like, tell us, like, 90 seconds, like, how you got here. What was the journey to become the mayor of Chicago for you?
Yeah, well, thank you, and good morning. Happy New Year. You're getting pretty good at this, Mr. President, by the way. There's a real future
I'm
for you.
auditioning for kind of an Oprah thing.
Yeah,
after.
CBS will have an opening, I believe, coming up soon. All right. That's how I got here, through stand-up. So, you know, truthfully, you know, the best job, honestly, that you could ever have to prepare to lead a city is to teach in our public schools. So I taught middle school, 7th and 8th graders.
You grew up in Chicago?
No, actually just outside of Chicago. My father was a part of the second Great Migration to the South Side, moved us just outside of the city, and then, of course, eventually returned. You know, and teaching middle school, particularly in Cabrini Green, one of the more dynamic neighborhoods in the city of Chicago, where students woke up every single day, particularly at the time in which I was teaching, with bulldozers staring at them from their front windows as the city of Chicago was prepared to dismantle public housing. But from their back windows, they could see the most wealthiest place on earth, which was downtown Chicago. And so I, you know, went to work every day as students were chasing a dream that perhaps was already behind them. And it led me to become an organizer with the Chicago Teachers Union. Eventually wanted to take our message to the voters and ran as a Cook County Commissioner and won that seat. And then an opportunity came for us to build a new vision for Chicago, and that's what, you know, provocated me to run for mayor. And a middle school teacher, now running one of the largest economies in the world. Dreams really could come true. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, we always, every day, we hope it's a dream and not a nightmare. But yes, it is a dream. This is a dream job for all of us. Okay, so last year, Chicago saw a 35% reduction in shootings and the fewest killings since 1965. I mean, that is, pretty remarkable. What do you attribute that 60-year low in homicides to, and talk about the work that's behind that?
Well, it starts with partnerships. You have to have people who buy in to a collective response of how we're going to drive violence down. You know, look, as much as I'm grateful that we have, you know, experienced this level of reduction, one homicide, one shooting, one act of violence is one too many. But our partnerships with our police department, our detectives bureau, we revamped it, stronger communication within the police department, you know, our patrol officers and counterintelligence all working together. And then we had CVI, community violence intervention workers. These are individuals who were justice involved, you know, who are part of the transformation of our city. And so police and working with CVI helped drive down violence in the city. In fact, where CVI workers were present, we saw numbers as high as 45 to 50% reduction.
Yeah, we talked about that on this stage yesterday with, you'll recall, with Mayor Dyer and Mayor Ewing, who have law enforcement backgrounds, about the importance of prevention and intervention, and that it's not all about law enforcement when you're trying to reduce violent crime statistics. It can be about youth programs. And actually, let's talk about the work you're doing with the youth. Two areas that you have focused on extensively are youth employment as well as mental health. Talk about how that relates into your overall strategy for Chicago.
Yeah, look, when I, you know, peruse through the cities across this country, the safest cities in America all have one thing in common. They invest in people. Investing in the young people, I believe, is the greatest strength that we could, offer up. And we've expanded youth employment by 50%. 31,119 young people had paid summer jobs. And I say paid because, we're Gen X. We're the last generation to volunteer. So, this other generation really requires a little bit more. That's not a bad thing. But we also expanded mental and behavioral health care services. I'm the first mayor since the first black mayor of our city to invest in mental health, public mental health, right? So I've reopened mental health clinics, I've used our libraries as a combination for mental health services. And then we expanded what we call our CARE program, Crisis Assistance Response Engagement. So when a 911 call is offered up, 40% of those calls were mental health crises. Instead of a police officer showing up to those mental health crises, now we have a paid behavioral health care professional showing up to those crises to provide the type of care that the people of Chicago deserve.
So Chicago is developing what is called a social housing program.
Yeah.
Can you talk about what that means?
Yeah, so as the federal government becomes more and more unstable, it's imperative that cities across this country find ways to better fund the critical issues that we address every single day. And so we have a program called Green Social Housing, which essentially establishes a revolving loan to continue to build affordable homes, keep those rates locked in, but ensure that the people who live in those homes can afford utility, right? So we are addressing housing affordability, but also responding to essentially climate change. It's the first of its kind in terms of the city of our magnitude, but it's one that I believe is critical as I work to build the safest, most affordable big city in America.
So our residents exercising their First Amendment rights comes up all the time, especially if you've been mayor kind of over this last decade. And Chicago can certainly be a focal point for those kinds of events. Democratic National Convention. You were able to get through that. There were protests, but you were able to get through that without any major incidents. I mean, how did you view that experience and kind of anything along the way where you've got that type of activity that, listen, I mean, it might happen again pretty soon.
Yeah. Well, look, what's fundamental to our democracy is our ability to be able to protest government. Mm-hmm. The fascinating element of the job that I have is that there's an elevator that's held for me every single morning that I blocked and took an arrest in front of, preventing 2 administrations ago from getting up to the 5th floor. And I'm not giving anyone any reason to do that to me, but our democracy is stronger because of protest. That's ultimately what I'm getting at. Yeah. And when you think about the civil rights movement, the labor rights movement, women's suffrage, as a former social studies teacher, I can't help but see the parallels in this moment that this country is being called to a higher level. The Democratic National Convention gave us an opportunity for an entire segment of our population to express quite frankly, their animus and rage towards the United States government, particularly in its role of promulgating war across the globe. And I think it's imperative, whether you agree with the policies or not, to give room to protest, because if you squash protests, you squash the spirit of this country. And I think as we move into this season of quite frankly resistance, which I believe is a healthy form of development, that the voices that are crying out now, as Dr. King described it, when you see protests, when you see riots, those are the cries of the unheard. And it's incumbent upon us as leaders, particularly mayors, to give room and space to those cries. Now, the last thing is, we want protests to be peaceful, right? That's where we have seen the most significant and dramatic change in this country, quite frankly, the globe, when people peacefully protest, petition the government to do right by its people. And relationships and understanding of those cries is critical as mayors to give room to that protest that ultimately I believe is going to lead towards transformation in a better country.
Worst day as mayor?
Wow. Well, I could take a poll on all of the worst days, which one of those worst days would be the worst. There was a couple of moments where we had police officers shot and killed on duty, and to be perfectly frank with you, those are just awful, horrific days, and people are looking for answers and looking to blame and politicize. But when our officers put their lives on the line for the people of Chicago and they lose their lives on duty, that stings.
Yeah.
That stings.
Best day as mayor.
Yeah, I was hoping it was going to be with beating the Rams a couple weeks ago. So Karen Bass eventually got hers as well. So, so true story. I'm at an event and I'm walking through this event, and across the room someone yells, "Mr. Johnson, Mr. Johnson." It was one of my former students who was 30 years old and had a family and obviously believed that the title Mr. Johnson is more powerful than Mayor Johnson.
That's great. That's great. Well, let's hear it for our colleague, Mayor Brandon Johnson.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Go out that way.
Please welcome Council on Foreign Relations President Michael Froman.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me. It's great to be back here. I was here once as the U.S. Trade Representative, and I've always really loved mayors because mayors get to feel and see what's going on in the economy at the grassroots level, but also have a keen sense of how what's going on around the world affects them. For some, it's obvious in their community how the international trade system affects you. You may have a big exporter in your city. For others, it may be less visible. Maybe it's a small business whose whole production process is dependent on some input that they get from another country. Or maybe it's a farm nearby that sees the price of their commodities being determined by what's going on outside the United States. Or a family who's trying to make ends meet every month and sees the price of basic goods like shoes and clothing and toys and food going up at the stores. So however your city's affected by trade, you know that we're going through one of the most significant changes in the global trading system in more than a generation. For 80 years, the U.S. developed and promoted and defended a system that helped bring the world together, integrated it. It saw a lot of benefits for a lot of people, including American consumers. But the benefits of trade were not equally shared. There was a counter reaction to it. You saw it in the politics in your own city, and now we're seeing an alternative approach. President Trump has been focused on tariffs for a long time, for decades, actually long before he was president. He sees them as a source of leverage, of getting countries to come to the table on issues like fentanyl or migration or Greenland. He sees them as a source of revenue. And thus far, or last year in 2025, they brought in almost $300 billion of revenue to the federal government. And most importantly, he sees them as a way of bringing manufacturing back to the United States and getting companies to put their supply chains here. As a source of leverage, it seems to be working. As a source of revenue, the more manufacturing actually we bring back to the United States, it means the less we'll import, and that revenue will probably go down. The real question is, will we be successful in bringing manufacturing and manufacturing jobs back to the United States? And that is what matters most, I think, to mayors, because the question is whether you see the influx of investment in your cities and the creation of jobs. And there, I think the jury is still out. When we look back historically, back in 2018, we put some tariffs on steel. We added about 1,000 steel jobs in the United States, but we lost 75,000 downstream manufacturing jobs in industries that were dependent on steel because the steel was more expensive. Since Liberation Day in April, we've lost 72,000 manufacturing jobs. But I would say that the administration is right that it's still early days. And it's not just the tariffs, it's the efforts by the president to get foreign countries to invest in the United States, to get companies to invest in the United States. And you will be at the front lines to monitor whether that is working or not, whether we see more factories being created, and whether those factories are going to employ more workers or are going to be largely automated. Time will tell. It's still early innings. We may well end up with more manufacturing as a share of our economy, but not necessarily more manufacturing jobs. One thing's for sure, we're likely to live on an ongoing basis in a higher tariff world. Tariffs are easy to put on. They're very hard to take off, regardless of what happens with the Supreme Court case that many of you have been involved in. And those tariffs have to be paid by somebody. Some piece of it may be paid by the exporters, but most of it is paid by the importing companies, the small businesses or the companies in your cities, and ultimately by consumers. Tariffs also tend to lead to retaliation, and we've seen that retaliation, particularly by China, and it comes largely against American farmers more than anybody else. We've seen the impact on their bankruptcies as well as the prices that they're getting. So we're in the midst of a grand experiment, and I think we're all waiting to see how it plays out over time. One thing's for sure, we should learn from the past. If you look back in the early 2000s, the so-called China shock, when China entered the global economy, we lost about 2 to 3 million manufacturing jobs across the country over a 12-year period. That's about 250,000 a year, about 20,000 a month in an economy of 130 million workers. And you saw the impact on the communities, the social impact, the political impact. Think about artificial intelligence. I know it's an area you'll be focusing on elsewhere. Whatever the positive impact of artificial intelligence, the estimates are we could well lose a multiple of those jobs over a much shorter period of time. And we're going to need to really think through issues like lifelong learning, mobility assistance, transition assistance, place-based economic development. A lot of the experimentation around policies like that are going to be done at the city levels, and you will be at the front lines of that. And let me just say, the Council on Foreign Relations stands ready to be a resource to you in any way that we can, and we wish you best of luck and a very good conference. Thanks very much.
Please welcome Miami Mayor Eileen Higgins, New Orleans Mayor Helena Marano, Seattle Mayor Katie Wilson, and Conference President David Holt.
Thank you. This is a conversation with some baby mayors. I said that last night, and you said, Mayor Moreno said I should call you like an infant
No,
mayor,
I told you,
newborn
call
mayor.
call me a newborn. Because I was sworn in like 2.5 weeks ago. So.
Yeah, so these are mayors from pretty well-known cities, Seattle, New Orleans, and Miami, but they have all been on the job a very short amount of time. In fact, let's go down the line. How many days now?
I'm about 5 weeks in.
5 weeks.
So
Okay.
I guess I'm a 2-year-old.
You're more toddler.
I'm a toddler.
Okay, and you're less than
Newborn.
3, and
Yeah,
where are we at?
Became the mayor on the first of the year.
First of the year, okay. Well, we wanted to get to know you a little bit, and so if we could just go down the line and, 90 seconds, like your journey, where'd you grow up, like what were the things you ran for or didn't run for before this, and tell us how you got to be mayor, Mayor Higgins.
Yeah, well, I grew up in New Mexico, another one of the states where Spanglish is the national language, so I fit right in Miami. Was a mechanical engineer working in the private sector for a very long time, and midway through my career in my 40s, I was running some pretty large divisions of international companies and went to a retreat where one of the exercises was to write your own obituary. And then you process that, and folks ask, what did you like about it and what was missing? And for me, what was missing was service. And so that made an immediate change in my life. I became the director of the Peace Corps in Belize, served our country as a diplomat in the Foreign Service, and then got elected to the County Commission, and the folks in the city of Miami were kind enough to select me to serve as their mayor.
That's a lot of chapters. Also, mechanical engineer.
Yeah, nerds. Anybody else out there? Raise your hand. Raise your hand if you like infrastructure and permitting reform. Those will be all the engineers.
I'm down for that.
Yes.
Mayor Moreno.
My path is very, very bizarre on how I got here. I was born in Mexico. My family came to the United States when I was 8 years old, grew up in Houston, ended up in the city of New Orleans about 25 years ago for a broadcast journalism job. I'm a former news anchor and reporter, and Hurricane Katrina struck our city in 2005. And during that time, it changed the city of New Orleans, it changed people's lives, it certainly changed mine, and I decided, you know what, I want to leave this career where I pretty much had it made, and instead go into public service. At that time, I decided to go big or go home. I ran for United States Congress. That time they sent me home. But I had great mentors who really pushed me forward and said, if public service is where you want to go, there's going to be a spot for you. So then I ran for the Louisiana legislature. I served there for 8 years. And then I ran for the city council at large seat, the citywide seat in the city of New Orleans. And I served there for 8 years and then was elected mayor of New Orleans this past October. And now being elected mayor, I'm the first Latina mayor in the city's 300-year history. So I'm pretty proud of that too.
Cool. So, I don't know if anybody caught the coverage. You can still pull up the video. You know, New Orleans does everything sort of like over the top, right? And your inauguration was something. I mean,
look, we had to make it over the top. In New Orleans, the way we do inauguration is there's always an inaugural interfaith service. And for that, it's kind of an interesting service because it's in our main cathedral and you walk down the aisle with the New Orleans flag behind you. So it's like you're marrying the city of New Orleans. So we start that way. And then, of course, we had to have a huge musical event. We brought in Vice President Harris, and it was, of course, a big party and a big event.
Wow. Yeah. Mayor Wilson, your journey.
So I actually grew up in upstate New York, Binghamton, New York. I know Binghamton's mayor is here today as well. And I moved to Seattle back in 2004. And since 2011, I've been a community organizer, coalition builder, co-founded an organization called the Transit Riders Union, which is like very grassroots democratic membership organization that fights for better public transit, higher minimum wages, stronger renter protections, progressive taxation, so very much grassroots community organizer. And had no thought of running for elected office until February of last year, and made a very quick decision to run for mayor, and here I am.
No regrets, right?
No regrets, no regrets.
Let's kind of talk a little bit about some of your priorities as you're coming into this new chapter of your life. Mayor Higgins, you talked a lot about housing affordability, and then we all we know enough about Miami to know, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like, I bet it's really expensive to live there. So tell me what you're thinking on that topic.
Well, affordability, we talk about it all the time as local government, as mayors, but housing is at the crux of it, right? If you cannot afford a place to live, you're not healthy, your family's not healthy, you even lose the ability to find different places to live and work. And so one of the things that I was proud enough to accomplish as a commissioner was making sure we had a robust program of using public land to build housing. And so in my 8 years there, I was able to open and build 4,000 units of affordable and workforce housing with 3,000 more in the pipeline. And so I bring that vision to the city about making sure we're using city-owned land to meet the people's purposes. Sometimes that's a park, but more often than not in our community, which is so unaffordable, it's to make sure we're building housing. But I told you, I mentioned permitting. I can never talk to anyone for more than 5 minutes without talking about permitting. So in my city, if you want to build 120 units of affordable and workforce housing, the planning and zoning process will take you 2 to 3 years, and the permitting process will take you 2 to 3 years. So you break ground 5 years after you had the idea for that. And so two things are happening when the bureaucracy is this thick. One is you're locking people out of housing. Two, the cost of the construction of that project has gone up between 40 and 60%, which means the cost of those units go up, which means they're less affordable. And you can never harness the private sector to help do that. And so my top priority is permitting reform, because to me, the lack of housing, affordable housing being built in Miami, that's the symptom. But the root cause is we have a bureaucracy that just does not allow it to get built. And so, and by the way, you all know we're also on the front lines of climate change. If you can fix permitting, we can get our drainage projects done more quickly. That will decost all those drainage projects, so now streets don't flood. Because homeowners have an affordability issue, and so when they're living in a neighborhood where their streets are flooding, their home insurance is more expensive. So you have to build the affordable piece and make sure our neighborhoods aren't flooding, and all of that is connected with making the city serve the residents with a streamlined process of permitting.
Oh. Mayor Moreno, you talked about back to the basics in your campaign, city services, improving the delivery of city services. Talk about that in New Orleans.
Sure. Well, it's interesting. Miami and New Orleans actually have a lot in common. And one of the main city services that also has been lacking in New Orleans is around permitting. When I was on the city council, it actually became to the point where city council members were becoming the concierge service for the permitting department, due to the fact that whether you were doing a renovation on your home, whether you were trying to start your business, whether you were doing a more substantial project in the city, our entire permitting department became so broken. And so that level of reform is also something that I'm digging deep in. The issue that I'm facing, though, in New Orleans is that we are under a lot of financial stress right now. I'm dealing with about a $222 million deficit. For our little city, that's a lot of money. So we've had to, do some significant budget cuts across city departments. I was able to ensure that essential city departments like permitting, like code enforcement, sanitation, public works, and of course public safety, that those stayed intact. But I ran on a campaign about city services. So that means fixing permitting. That also means making sure that I figure out a path to smooth out our streets. For those of you all who may have been in New Orleans recently, we've got a little bit of a pothole problem. I'm working to fix that. So I need to come up with a plan to fix our streets, make sure we keep our lights on, with very limited operating finances. So I'm so grateful to have such a tremendous team that thinks outside the box on new ways to do things. We are actually moving forward now with being able to hire about 50 new public works employees to deal with just concrete repairs around the city, using our capital dollars, where we do have a lot of dollars there. So I can build things, I don't have a lot of money to run things. So, in using capital dollars to hire these employees to work on these concrete repairs, because the work of these projects do have a life longer than 10 years. So thinking outside the box, how I can still ensure those promises are kept. And then on just the basics of making sure that our lighting infrastructure works. I'm sure many of you all also have this problem of copper thefts with your lighting.
Yep.
So every time we put up new lights, 3 weeks later, they're out again. So we're in the process now of switching out our lighting infrastructure to go solar and to go aluminum. Of course, once again, the dollars are tight, but we were able to identify about $2.8 million to be able to do this level of refurbishing, so that I can light up our interstates, I can light up all of our hurricane evacuation routes, and so that right there is going to be a big win for our city. But once again, it's about getting the basics right. And I think as coming in as new mayors, people just expect that there's going to be a light switch that goes on and everything's going to be fixed. I mean, I'm already getting calls like, why isn't this fixed yet? And I'm like, I've been there 2.5 weeks. And so I always tell people that it's like, let's manage expectations. So my priority coming in is let me make sure that I can get the basic services right, that we get our lights on, we start to get our streets smoothed out, we get our permitting department going, and from that point on, we build and build and build. Because coming in, I feel like everyone's throwing 1,000 things at me, and I need to keep my focus on those things instead of getting all sidetracked and not getting anything done. So that's one of the challenge, I guess, as a new mayor, that I've been talking to other mayors who have a lot more experience than me on how to keep that focus on the main thing as you also work on chipping away the other things as well.
No, that is, you already know at least the greatest challenge, which is doing what you want to do over the next 4 years,
right,
not what everyone else wants you to do. Mayor Wilson, affordability, this is going to not be a radical new issue, but certainly housing and every other cost for the residents of Seattle was something you talked a lot about. Why don't you talk about your thoughts and your plans there?
Yeah, sure. I mean, Seattle is, one of our many high-cost cities in the U.S. at this point, and affordability was really core to why I ran and to what I want to do in office. Housing affordability, obviously, is really at the foundation of the affordability crisis in many ways, and so for me, tackling the housing crisis looks like we have to do this on all fronts. So land use, zoning, permitting, all of that, right? We have some opportunities coming up in Seattle to allow more multifamily housing to be built in the great neighborhoods around our city, near frequent transit, and so we're going to be hopefully moving forward on a lot of that, and then definitely permitting reform, design review reform, anything we can do to get more projects in the pipeline. And also in Seattle, we have a new social housing developer that was established by voters a couple of years ago, and then a funding measure passed last year, and that was actually kind of the prompt that got me into the race. And so in a couple months, we'll have $50 million plus a year that's flowing into this new social housing developer. And the idea is that this is building permanently affordable, mixed income, publicly owned housing. And so it's a very, very high priority for me that the city is doing everything that it can to support the new developer and making sure that it's successful, that we're beginning to acquire and develop this new kind of non-market housing sector in our city. And also renter protections for stability. I mean, one of the issues that I want to tackle out of the gate is kind of rental junk fees, or all these kind of hidden charges that as a renter you have kind of the sticker price of your apartment, and then you read the fine print and you realize that there's all these hidden monthly charges that you got to pay. And I'm a renter myself, so very familiar with with what it's like out there. So that and some other policies interested in pursuing as well. So kind of across the board, trying to tackle housing affordability. Also supporting programs that try to make homeownership more affordable, right? I think especially for people like I have a young child, and families that are trying to make it in a high-cost city like Seattle, it is really hard, right? Housing costs, childcare costs, and if you aspire to own a home, which in the U.S. where our kind of long-term financial security is very tied up with homeownership, for better or worse, that is just super challenging in a city like Seattle. And so you have so many young families that end up moving out of the city because they just can't afford it, and then that has knock-on effects to our school system and really everything. So housing is really at the core. Also childcare, and we're going to be pulling together stakeholders to try to figure out what can we do to create a roadmap to childcare, not just for very young children, but through summer care for school-age kids, right? Like there's so many gaps in our provision of childcare for working families, and so we're going to be working on that as well. Food access, food security is another part of the affordability crisis that a lot of people are feeling right now. And honestly, the affordability crisis also is impacting our small businesses, right? And this is something that I heard over and over again on the campaign, talking with folks in neighborhoods around the city. All of the cost pressures that are impacting families and residents are also impacting our small businesses, and so that's another area where I want to make progress, and some of that is also around permitting reform and all of the things which make it, all the bureaucracy that makes it really hard to start or expand a small business in Seattle. Those are all high priorities for me. And then homelessness, right, which is obviously related to the affordability crisis, but in Seattle we have levels of unsheltered homelessness that are really off the charts, and so there's a lot of energy that I'm going to be putting into, my team's going to be putting into addressing that and opening new emergency housing and shelter and getting people inside. And I'll say, I mean, one other thing is coming from the point of view of a community organizer, right? You know, the work that I've done over the years is all about how do you build that power on the outside, that coalition, that pressure from residents that makes things that might have seemed impossible become inevitable, right? And so I really value the power of organizing. And so one of the things that I want to do as mayor is be creating those opportunities for organizers, for organizations on the outside to create that pressure that's going to allow us as elected officials to do the right thing even when it's controversial. And so I think that kind of inside-outside dynamic is something that is very core to the way that I think about politics, and it's something that I want to bring into this job.
Yeah, very good. Well, as I've had mayors here the last couple of days, I've sometimes asked them their best day and their worst day. I don't think you have enough days yet for me to pose that, but maybe we'll have you back next year and check in on that. But for now, let's let this round of applause be a clapping of good luck to you in your journey ahead. Thank you so much, mayors.
Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage Wells Fargo Head of Deposits, Payments, and Business Banking, John Durant, Tulsa Mayor Monroe Nichols, and Tampa Mayor Jane Castor.
I don't even know.
All right. Hello, everyone. Yeah, excited to see you all. Jane Castor, Mayor of Tampa, and I'm going to moderate this conversation on how cities are protecting their residences from financial scams. I'm joined here today by Monroe Nichols, Mayor of Tulsa. He's going to tell us all about Sylvester Stallone and the Tulsa show.
That's right.
And John Durant, the head of deposits and payments and business banking, consumer banking and lending at Wells Fargo. It sounds like a really big name tag. So as a former police chief, I know the importance of protecting folks from scams and the increasing threat this poses on consumers. And so I'm looking forward to moderating this discussion, and we are going to jump right in. John, can you start by giving us the lay of the land? Where is fraud happening, and really what can we as mayors do about it?
Sure. First, let me say thank you for inviting me. I'm excited to be here today and talk about what we think is a really important topic. I'll start by just saying that when we think about fraud and scams, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of ways that this happens. These things happen to constituents and consumers. But you could bucket them into sort of three categories. So there's what I would call debit and credit card fraud. Been around for a long time. Bad guys and gals steal credentials, steal credit cards, debit cards, and use it. Then there's bank fraud, which is similar. Bad actors are stealing your bank account, your credentials to log into your mobile app, and then going in and transferring money. And then there's scams, and scams is the thing that I'll probably talk about most today. Mm-hmm. Think of that as where the difference is that the bad actors are convincing the consumer to go in and do something and initiate a transfer. Obviously with the intent of getting the money. But the difference is that the consumer themselves are actually going in and initiating the transaction. And the reason I lay that out is because those different types of frauds and scams have different liabilities. Who's responsible? The first two, whether it be debit credit fraud or even most versions of bank fraud, ultimately the consumer's not typically held accountable for that. The banks will reimburse the money. But in that third type of situation, scams, our laws, and for good reason, ultimately do hold consumers accountable for what they're doing with their money. So I lay that out as a framework, to sort of start with. When you think about all three of those, so I would argue that there is a burgeoning crisis in the scam component of that. What's happened is, as we as banks and really other constituents, but certainly banks, have built better tools and better capabilities to prevent those first two types of fraud, the same people who were perpetrating that fraud have turned to scams.
Right.
And we as an industry are building lots of tools and doing lots of things to try to prevent and protect consumers. But as we'll talk about, the bad people are very innovative and they have a lot of resources.
Have to stay a step ahead without a doubt.
You do, and as we'll talk about a little bit, I think it's important to note that scams in particular are something that are going to require more than just banks protecting consumers, because the nature of a scam, typically, it ends with the consumer moving their money, which they have to obviously do by interacting with their bank. But oftentimes it starts days, weeks, months before that.
Right.
And there are many other parts of the sort of industry involved, whether it be the social media marketplaces, the telecom industry has a big role to play in protecting consumers from things like spoofing and fake texts and caller IDs. And some of those other sectors, I think, are a little less incented than the banks themselves, who tend to deal with the brunt of whether it be the public backlash or our own customers who are looking to us to help protect them.
Yeah, and it's very interesting. As you say, as the security evolves, so do the bad guys out there. And John and I were talking backstage, and several years ago, my mother's 91, incredibly sharp, and she and my family, we have something to talk to you about. And I'm like, oh, what's this? And they said that one of my sons, Sealy, they said he's been arrested in Atlanta. And I'm like, he's at home. They said, no, he's in jail in Atlanta. He got arrested. And I go, my son is at the house. I just talked to him. And so my mother was scammed out of $5,000,
Wow.
but they called, my son called her, the name all the kids call her is Gma, and had all the details about him, and was incredibly convincing, even the voice. And so these scams are, just incredibly sophisticated. So one of the things that I want to ask you, mayors, what are some of the ideas that you have, and how we as mayors can communicate this to our residents, and how can we help our constituents to avoid being victims of these types of crimes?
It's a great question. I think, as we were hearing, information is king in this deal, and we were joking backstage. I was like, if you don't remember anything from this, do not go buy a Visa gift card to send to somebody. But a big part of it is empowering citizens with information, because they are, inundated with these things. And typically it's going to happen to folks like your mother, folks who are on the lower end of the income stream. Like, there's all these things that impact them. And so I think for those of us who are leading cities, making sure that not only that information is in place where people show up, we spend a lot of time making sure it's in municipal court and, where people are paying for their bills and things like that, but also building really, really strong community partnerships. So you got trusted areas where people get their information from that you can communicate through. John and I were talking backstage, and they've thought about barbershops, as an example. We've actually thought about, having a Sunday where pastors are preaching about not falling for scams, like just finding these different and innovative ways in which we can communicate out to the public. And then on the other side of it, on the programmatic side, through our Financial Empowerment Center, the one-on-one counseling with folks has been really, really effective. I think we did like 9,000 one-on-one sessions this last year. A lot of that is, helping folks, build their savings and things like that. But a lot of that is rolling back what they fall into in the way of fraud and scams, which has been a huge deal. So there's a one-on-one touch from a programmatic side that we through the Financial Empowerment Center. The other part of it is finding all the different outlets in which we can communicate to folks about the danger of the scams that John and you talked about with your mother.
Great. And then, John, so give us some ideas of, what's occurring now, what Wells Fargo is seeing, and then how you work with the communities to ensure that not only our residents are safe, but your customers as well.
Yeah, well, I'll start by just putting a little bit of sort of context around it in terms of size. And there's a couple different sources that measure this. The two most credible ones would put the sort of cost of this for consumers somewhere between $12 and $16 billion annually. So that's like a 2024 number. I would estimate that this is growing at low double digits, 10, 15% a year, scams specifically. So this is a really big problem, and it's growing quickly. And so we're putting just tremendous resources against this, whether that be investing in technology to identify when an individual transaction is out of pattern for a customer. We intervene and we put, if you're on your mobile app and you're trying to send a Zelle to somebody, sometimes we'll make you hit OK 3 or 4 times, right? Because we kind of think this is not normal for you. Mm-hmm. The challenge is, and this is the reality for us, is we have a fine line to walk, right? Because it is the customer's money, and telling a customer they can't do something that they want to do with their money is a delicate balance for us. And as advanced as we are with technology and AI and machine learning, we're not going to get it right every time. Right. Sometimes you're just doing something that is a little bit out of the norm for you. Mm-hmm. And so this is where the comment about education comes in. I think our single biggest line of defense is educating consumers.
Yes.
Yeah. And we invest a ton, whether that be sending emails to customers, pop-ups on the mobile app, or when you visit one of our branches, there's all sorts of information that we are pushing out to customers constantly, trying to tell them about the latest types of scams. That's where I think folks in the room and government in general can play a real role in helping with that. Mm-hmm. Mayor Nichols was commenting earlier. I made the comment that, unfortunately, our consumers aren't sitting around waiting for the next email from their bank. Yeah. His comment was they're also not sitting around waiting for the next email from him. But I think collectively that's just such an important thing for us to do. I think our single biggest line of defense is educating consumers.
Without a doubt.
So what are the types? You asked the question, what are the types? There's some that have been around for a while. Romance scams are a big one where largely targeting elderly, but not only elderly. I'll come back to that in a second. But developing romantic relationships online and then eventually asking for money to be transferred. Emergency scams. Your child or your grandchild is in jail or is in some sort of a pickle and needs money right away. This is where the fraudsters and bad actors are using AI to impersonate voices and even impersonate videos in ways that are very, very sophisticated and would convince even the sharpest of us. And they play on our human instincts of wanting to protect and creating urgency. And then they leverage mechanisms for moving money that are permanent and irreversible, right? And they're permanent and irreversible for a good reason, by the way. There's lots of goodness that comes from certain types of money movement, but they take advantage of that as well. Mm-hmm. Crypto is another very fast-growing area where we see a lot of scams. I will not claim to be an expert on this, but crypto kiosks are popping up, and I would say to anyone in the room to think carefully and really investigate the role that crypto kiosks are playing in your communities, because one of the things they certainly do is create an opportunity for scams to be perpetrated. So there's literally hundreds of them. Those are some of the more popular ones. The other one I would mention is social media marketplaces. Fraudsters putting things available for sale on social media marketplaces, directing consumers to fake websites, getting the consumer to pay for something, thinking it's going to get shipped to them, and it just never shows up.
Wow. And are most of the victims, not to throw shade on the elderly, especially since I'm in that category now, are most of the victims elderly?
It's a great question. That is a very common thought, and there's no question that historically the elderly population has been the primary target. But we are seeing that change quickly. And I think what we're seeing is a lot more targeting of younger people and people in what I'll call life transitions. Yeah. Go to school, moving, setting up care for an elderly parent. Mm-hmm. Anything where you as an individual are starting to interact with a provider of services for the first time creates an opportunity for these folks to impersonate that provider.
Right.
Get you to send money, and then whatever it was you were asking for from them never happens.
Yeah, and I mean, clearly it can happen to anybody. I don't want to, bust anybody's confidentiality, but I understand that Mayor Barnett owns a university in Nigeria, so I'm just saying that has not been confirmed. So, Mayor, how about this idea of financial empowerment, an office of financial empowerment, you know, as you said, to try to help residents grow businesses and wealth, but also to avoid these types of scams?
Yeah, it's a big part of the work that we do there. I mean, you know, I think it was a 2024 study, and I'll just cite the stat. I won't even tell you where it came from, but it's totally legit. But I did see part of the overhang for us is like 45% of people are financially illiterate, right?
Yeah.
And so if you think about that with the overhang of scams, I don't even think that's feeding into that 45%. So I think to John's comment, it's really dynamic now, the folks who are victimized. But I do believe this is a critical economic mobility tool. So I talked about those one-on-one counseling sessions, so the programmatic side. What that has led to this last year is about, I think it's $1.3 million in Tulsa in added savings that people are able to build, and a $3 million reduction in debt.
Oh, that's excellent.
And so there are some things that we're tracking. The big thing is making sure that you're able to reach out to more and more residents, because there's more people who need to be helped and served. And so I do think that, again, I think as we started, the education part of it is the most critical part. Working with community partners is the most critical part. But on the programmatic side, finding the ways in which you can stand up some sort of a center where people to go because they can trust it, even if you're working through partners, because that's where you start to help folks, you know, recover, build, and then build that literacy that people don't come into it with.
Well, and that's what we can all walk away with from this session today, is that understanding, the communication, the education, ensuring that we're protecting our communities. So I want to end by thanking both of you for your time. John, we appreciate Wells Fargo's support. You guys are always here for U.S. Conference of Mayors. And I want to thank you, Mayor, for all that you have done in Tulsa. And we will be taking your programs back to Tampa and using innovative programs that we will claim, right?
We're all in it together.
So thank you both very, very much. Appreciate it.
Please welcome Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass and Conference President David Holt.
Well, thank you, Mayor Bass. Let me first start by thanking you for being so engaged in the conference. You're an advisory board member, you're chair of our homelessness task force. You've really jumped into this effort, and I think we're all grateful for that, because we know running Los Angeles is a time-consuming exercise, but you have made time for us. And
well, but it's more than that, because to me it's been extremely important to be here, because when we work together as mayors and combine our strength and power, we're also able to bring about very specific change. So, and thank you for your leadership.
Yeah,
appreciate it very much.
It's my honor. Well, you have had a really remarkable career up to this point. Of course, served in Congress immediately before running for mayor of LA. You've worked on, through that service, you've worked on some of the most impactful and consequential policies and legislation in recent American history. You were even considered by President Biden as a potential vice president. I mean, we all know that mayor is the greatest job in the world, but we want to hear it in your words. What made you decide to run for mayor of Los Angeles?
Well, I will tell you, honestly, it was something I had never, ever considered. But we were and are having such a crisis in LA around homelessness. We're a city of 3.8 million, and we have, just in our city alone, 46,000 people unhoused, with more than 40% of them literally sleeping on our streets. And to me, I was very concerned that the city was turning so negative that it was going to move into a period of real hostility that was not going to solve the problem. It might have made people feel good that minute. They arrested somebody, but it was not going to do anything. And so that made me toss everything up, gamble, and run. And I happened to run against a multi-billionaire, which definitely made it challenging.
How many billions do you have? I forget.
A zero.
If people spend more than 10 minutes with me, they're probably going to hear that Oklahoma City is the NBA champs. If they spend 15 minutes with me, they're probably going to hear that we are hosting 2 sports and 7 events of the LA 28 Olympics in OKC.
And we're glad about that.
Thank you. Well, this has been a really unique partnership. We are the only city outside of Southern California that is hosting the entirety of an event, and it's one of the things that has certainly brought Mayor Bass and I close together, and so we are very excited at Oklahoma City to have this opportunity to support LA's games. What do the games mean to Los Angeles? And I'll also say that we all know, and I've certainly heard a lot about through this process, how the '84 games left an incredible legacy. What's the kind of legacy that you're hoping here for the 2028 games?
Well, first of all, the games mean everything to LA, but we're going to have the World Cup as well. But the Olympics, Los Angeles will be one of 3 cities in history to host the Olympics 3 times, 1932, 84, and 28. And in the 1984 Olympics, Mayor Bradley left a legacy that we still benefit from 41 years later. He left a foundation that funds youth sports in many of our city recreation centers. And so one thing that I'm hoping to accomplish with the games is really our motto in the city is games for all. So we want our neighborhoods to benefit economically. And one of the things I loved about Paris, and you went to Paris as well, whether you went to the games or not, the whole city made you feel like the Olympics was everywhere because there were all kinds of events and activities. It's a wonderful way to unify a city that is spread out over 500 square miles and many, many different neighborhoods, and it's an opportunity to lift everybody up economically. So we've been working with small businesses, doing summits over the last few years to prepare them to receive contracts and to put on events all around the city. We're going to test it out with the World Cup. We're hosting 8 games, but we also will, have watch parties all 30+ days of the World Cup. So we have a couple of dress rehearsals before 2028.
Yeah. Fun fact that I don't know if I've ever told you, but that 1984 surplus, some of it was distributed to governing bodies around the United States, and some of it was given to the softball, National Softball Governing Body, which was headquartered in Oklahoma City, and they used that as the seed money to build the stadium that is now going to host the games in Oklahoma City.
Oh,
so
my goodness,
come
I
full
didn't
circle,
know that.
A surplus from 1984.
I hope we have a surplus, because if we don't, our city's on the hook for a whole lot of money.
Well, I know you're all over that. The opening ceremony will take place partly at the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. This is a pretty famous venue. I think most of us in the room can visualize it. It's a venue where Martin Luther King once spoke, President Kennedy once spoke. It's been really important, I know, because part of the opening ceremony is not going to be there. I know it's been really important to LA that some of it be there and that history be made once again. I heard you have one particular memory that's really important to you of being in that very famous Coliseum.
Yeah, absolutely. The Coliseum is really special to all of Los Angeles. But for me, I had been very active in the movement to free Nelson Mandela and the anti-apartheid movement of the 80s. And so when Mandela was free after 27 years of incarceration, he spoke at the Coliseum. And so for all of us that had spent years working to change U.S. policy towards South Africa and to push for his freedom, it was an incredible, incredible moment of unity and joy in the city of Los Angeles.
Yeah. You mentioned this, kind of alluded to this. You have a staggering number of massive sporting events coming to the area.
Yes, we do.
Over the next 2 years. So, okay, let's just run down real quick. The 2026 NBA All-Star Game, and by the way, the leadership meeting of this conference is built around that, and we're all going to the celebrity game here in a couple of weeks.
Good.
Then you've got the 2026 FIFA World Cup.
Oh, no, wait a minute. Before the FIFA World Cup, we have the U.S. Open for golf for women.
Okay, yes.
That happens in June, and literally a day or two later is the World Cup. I said to the previous mayor, what were you thinking? I mean, it's wonderful, but...
And then you have the Super Bowl.
Yes, in 2027.
Next year. By the way, you're not like you didn't come into this as like the biggest sports fan in the world, did
No.
you? But you are now.
I'm learning, and plus we have an abundance of teams and a World Series champions.
But this concentration of events.
Twice.
This concentration of events, though, obviously great for the economy. I mean, ultimately, you've clearly embraced it.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Despite the challenges.
Well, the other thing that I'm really excited about is, yes, we have the Olympics, but we have the Paralympics.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if any of you watched the Paralympics or if any of you had the honor of being in Paris. I had the honor of actually presenting a medal. But the Paralympics is so inspiring for people who have incredible challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that they become, elite athletes is just so inspiring to me. And so it will be the first time in Los Angeles that we host the Paralympic Games.
Yeah, and that follows the games just right after.
Yes, it's about a week or so later.
By the way, you may not be thinking about it right now, but the ticket draw for the Olympics and the Paralympics is now open. Basically, you register, and there's no advantage to registering one day earlier than the next, but there's a deadline coming up, I think in March or something.
Right, that's right. And not only that, so if you register now, when the draw comes, everybody's kind of back equal. Unfortunately, at 7 o'clock a few weeks ago, 7 a.m., everybody was rushing to do it, thinking that it was first come, first served.
Yeah, it's
and
just a draw.
Not.
You're entering in a lottery.
The other thing about the Olympics is that the tickets are going to be, there's going to be a range, and there will be affordable. That's the thing that is unfortunate about FIFA, because even the nosebleed tickets are hundreds of dollars, which is why we will have watch parties around the city. All of us are dealing with an affordability crisis, and so the last thing that our folks can afford is FIFA tickets. If you think of how, widespread and exciting the World Cup is, kind of soccer is for everyone.
Yeah. Well, I'm partly mentioning this Olympic ticket draw so you don't bug Mayor Bass for tickets.
I'm trying to get them too.
So LA is one of those cities, and we're, as a conference, coming there in a couple weeks, and then we're coming to Long Beach, obviously, in June. So we're going to certainly...
Long Beach is a great city.
Yeah, everybody will, at the very least, pass through LA during that trip. But we all go to LA at some point. And so this is a very practical question. You have an amazing food scene. Where should we go eat?
Well, that's an interesting question. Which country? Because that's one thing about LA is that you don't have to travel overseas. Just pick your country and you can go to a restaurant. So if you're going to ask me where's my favorite Thai place or Mexican or Southern or Italian.
Okay. You want
Thai? Yes.
Favorite Thai place?
Natalie's
awesome.
Thai. Natalie's Thai.
Natalie's
There's two
Thai.
of them. Yes.
Okay. That's a hot tip. Thank you very much.
No, you're welcome. Cuban, you name it.
Yeah,
Versailles.
awesome. By the way, those who are in leadership, I feel like I'm really plugging leadership. This is why you should think about it. Those who are in leadership are going to have dinner at Getty House, the mayoral residence in Los Angeles.
Yes, I think there's 4 cities where mayors have residence, I believe.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways,
That's nice.
Fun little perk. We look forward to crashing your place here
Good.
in a couple weeks.
Look forward to welcoming you to LA.
All right. Well, let's hear it for Mayor Bass. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Get ready
Champions of the world!
for the greatest event in history. In 2026, we will bring the world together. 3 countries, 16 cities, 48 teams, 104 games. All of us, united as individuals, united as billions. So you and all of you, bring your game to the beautiful game. We are FIFA. We are football. New song, Somos. We are 26.
A hush fell over the room as the winner's trophy from the 2026 World Cup arrived That was a very dramatic entrance. I don't know if you saw that little BTS and the man with the gloves and all of that. That was pretty cool. All right, this summer, the largest sporting event ever to be held, sounds like hyperbole, but it's true, will take place in 11 American cities, 3 in Mexico and 2 in Canada. 48 teams will be competing for the most prestigious sports championship, the FIFA World Cup. To tell us how all our cities can participate and enjoy the World Cup excitement, we have a very, very special guest this morning. We have the president of FIFA with us. For a special presentation, please welcome to the stage Gianni Infantino. Welcome, welcome. It is my pleasure, Mr. President, to present to you this USA Soccer jersey that has been signed. It's been out in the lobby. I hope you got a chance. It's been signed by all the mayors here. This is yours on behalf of the mayors of the United States. Here, we'll move over here.
Excellent.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
All right, I'll take that off.
And for you, the official ball of the FIFA World Cup.
This is amazing. Yes, I cannot tell you what this means to me. This is getting. I'm going right to the Container Store and getting a soccer ball display case for this.
No, but you have to bring it for the opening game, otherwise we cannot kick it off.
It's
the official ball.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I will keep it safe for you, Mr. President. Don't you worry.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. President. All right. Please welcome again, President Infantino.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, President. Hello. Hello. So now we need to enter in the football spirit, in the soccer spirit, dear mayors, representatives of all the cities in the beautiful country of the United States of America. It's for me a great, great pleasure and an honor to be here with you this morning and to address you on what is going to happen. You've seen some beautiful images about the FIFA World Cup that is coming up, the greatest, biggest, not just sporting event, but also social event of history. So I have an announcement to make here today, is that actually for the first time in 250 years of history of the United States of America, well, you will not just be invaded, but you will be conquered. You will be conquered by soccer, and it starts here and today. This is what will happen in the next few months. A horde of barbarians, but happy barbarians, all colored with the colors of their countries, will come and will celebrate together in peace and in joy. What will be the greatest event of mankind so far. The numbers are absolutely stunning. You might have heard some of them will have 6.5 million tickets, almost 7 million tickets for sale to fill the stadiums. We'll have many more millions coming to the United States, of course. We'll have 16 host cities, 11 of which in the United States. We'll play in Canada and Mexico as well. 104 matches will be played, and these 104 matches, to give you an order of magnitude, correspond to 104 Super Bowls in 1 month. This is what this is about. We'll have 6 billion people watching the FIFA World Cup from home on TV. This makes it the biggest event, and everyone from home or here will focus their eyes on the United States, on Canada, and on Mexico, and it will be a great celebration of humanity, a great celebration of people coming together. In the last 4 weeks, when we had a ticket sales phase, we received, for these 6.5, 7 million tickets, we received 500 million ticket requests. 500 million people would like to come and watch the FIFA World Cup. To give you there as well an order of magnitude. In the last 100 years, the World Cup exists since almost 100 years. In the last 100 years, FIFA sold more or less 50 million tickets altogether. And now in 4 weeks, we have 500 million tickets requested. We'll make a draw, of course. A few lucky ones will get the tickets, and others, unfortunately, will not get the tickets. But what will they do? Well, they will come to the cities, they will enjoy, they will celebrate, they will be part of the fan fests, of the watch parties. For all of you, organized watch parties, you can get the licenses very, very easy, and people will spend a great time together, because what you should know is that FIFA is not just a non-for-profit organization which reinvests all its revenues in the game of soccer all over the world. FIFA is also an official, or I would say the official, happiness provider for humanity. Because when you have a soccer ball, try and test it out. You have a soccer ball, you give it to a child, or you give it to an adult, the face changes. So a soccer ball transforms a child in a happy child, or an adult in a happy adult. And we will do this in a big, big scale during the upcoming World Cup, which will be fantastic. The economic impact, I know you all have to, of course, look at budgets and costs and all this. The economic impact as well is huge. In the US only, it's about $30 billion which people will come and spend in the United States. Most of it will be tourism, and many tourists will come and they will travel from one city to the other by plane, by car, by balloon, I don't know, any means will be good, and they will want to feel America. They will want to feel the real America, the welcoming America. And we all know that, especially in these critical times around the world, we need occasions to bring people together. We need occasions to celebrate. We need occasions to share some happiness, and that's what the World Cup will be doing. And I'm grateful to all of you for what you will be doing with the World Cup and for the World Cup. I actually, if I may share with you one little more anecdote. I had the pleasure this morning to meet several of the mayors, and including the previous mayor of this, the previous president of this conference, and he came to me and he told me I'm a great baseball fan, right? And I asked him, how come you're a baseball fan? I mean, you should be a soccer fan, right? Baseball, what is this? And he told me, no, baseball is the American pastime. I looked at him and I said, well, I agree. It's the past time, because the future time is soccer, of course, as we all know. You know, my English is not so good, so I can play a bit with words. But jokes aside, I mean, soccer is, as you know, a great sport for girls, for boys, for men, and for women. And actually, let me conclude by getting one more thing right here. And I think this is the right forum to do that, right? So we have this debate between soccer or football, as you might know. Why? Because we, meaning basically everyone outside of this beautiful country here, we call football a game that we play with our feet, which is why we call it football, right? Seems logic, at least, to us everywhere else in the world. You, in this beautiful country here, you call football a game you play with your hands. Now, I don't know who's right or who's wrong. I don't know. But, jokes aside, we can call it soccer, we can call it football. As long as we enjoy and have fun, I think we will do something great for us and for our youth, for our future. We bring the world together in happiness. We'll have on the 19th of July of this year in New York, New Jersey, somebody that wins this incredible this incredible trophy. It's the most iconic trophy in the world of sport, and I'm the only one actually authorized to touch it. And I conclude with that. Why? Because we have very strict rules for that. The only ones who can touch it are, of course, the players who win it. But somebody has to give them the trophy when they win it. They cannot just come and grab it by themselves. So that's the FIFA president and usually the president of the hosting country. So when I figured out that I would have loved to become a world champion or a soccer player, but when I figured out that my skills were not really allowing me to do that, I had to figure out another way to be able to touch this beautiful trophy. So I decided to become FIFA president. Thank you very much. Enjoy the World Cup, have fun, and thanks for having us here. Thank you so much.
So the most iconic trophy in the world is going to be moved out to the booth, the FIFA booth, just outside this room that hopefully you've already stopped by, and you will not be able to touch it, but you will be able to get your picture next to it. And so in about 5 minutes, that opportunity will present itself. Thank you, Mr. President.
Can I say one more thing?
Of course.
Can I say, you're all politicians, you know that when a president gets a mic, you know when he starts to speak, you don't know when he stops. No, but let me just say one more thing. I would like that every city in the US can somehow be part of it symbolically to this World Cup. And if you agree, what I would like to do is that I hear that you are more or less 1,000 or a bit more than 1,000 cities part of this conference. So we would like to give to every one of the cities, and we will ship them in the next few weeks, 100 balls each. So that you can give them to children, to schools, to 100 balls for every one of the 1,000, 1,200, whatever it is.
There's actually 500 dues-paying members, so I just cut your expense in half. 500 cities will receive 100 soccer balls.
Yeah, then we make 200.
200?
Yeah. And you can give them to schools or hospitals or children, and you will see their smiles in their faces.
Thank you.
Shall we do that?
Thank the president.
Thank you.
That incredible gesture. Thank you.
So much.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. 200, you heard it, 200 soccer balls go into every member city of the U.S. Conference of Mayors as a personal gift of President Infantino. Let's thank him again for coming to see us today. Our morning plenary is now adjourned. And like I said, go get your picture with the trophy out in the lobby.
Thank you so much.